Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar session. Delighted to have a special guest with us today. Hopefully you can see and hear Keith loud and clear. This is Keith Lewis, Social Media Manager at Zurich Insurance. Hi, Keith.
Morning, Dan. All good?
All good, thanks. Yeah, and you?
Yeah, not bad for a sunny-ish South Coast day.
Sunny, yeah. I mean, I think if you're on the South Coast, yeah, you always get a little bit more sun, especially compared to us here in Birmingham. So it sounds good. Sounds good. So today we're going to be talking about a really interesting topic, which is around how you can use social media and get employees more engaged and active on social media to act as advocates or influencers. And before we dive into it, Keith's got some great content and some great slides to share. But before we dive into those, I just want to say, if you've got any questions at any point in today's session, please do submit it into the little questions box, which you should hopefully see on the side. And we can take a break through the session and answer those questions, or we can just do a roundup at the end, depending on what the question is and when we receive them. So please get involved. Keith's here and ready and willing to take some questions. So I'm going to pass over to you, Keith. So bear with us 1 second, and magically we should be able to. Get the power. There we go.
All right, how's that looking?
Perfect. So I can see the full screen slide, and I can see you. So I think we look good.
Cool. You want me to crack on?
So yeah, take it away, Keith. Yeah, and
good stuff.
Yeah.
Bro, thanks, Dan. As ever, it's great to be with you guys. And I've been a delegate and watched a number of these over the years, so it's nice to be on this side of the camera, so to speak, and talking about my favourite subject, which is how we start to connect all the stuff that we're doing in the social world to our internal audiences to try and bring them up. So whilst the slide says connecting with customers, that might be different for all of you online depending on what you mean by customer. As I'll explain. So look, I'm an insurance, work for an insurance company. So our customers may be intermediaries, there may be direct end users, there could be stakeholders, some of the people that you work for, so your local authority clients might be customers of ours as well. So we kind of have lots of different meanings to the word customer, but just as a bit of a scene set. And this is a slide that I have for every presentation that I do, and hopefully you will all understand it, being in the social space. But we're trying to get the question around to our internal audiences about what is it that's stopping them. And there's a bunch of answers that come back with that. If you've got any suggestions that's what's stopping you from being more active on social as individuals in your companies or your organizations, then by all means chuck them into the chat, and hopefully we can pick those off as we go through. But there's generally a bucket of reasons that they're not sure they're allowed to, they're not sure what to post. Time is always the one that crops up, and that's the one thing I kind of can't really help with as much as I'd love to. There's a few little tweaks, hints and tips as we go, and some of the platforms that we've all got access to can help with some of that if you want to go down that route. But that's the one thing I can't really help with. But if we get our heads into a different space in terms of why we should be doing it, that should hopefully help to create some time for you to do it, because lots of people see social as being not part of my job. It's just something they do in their spare time. Whereas hopefully, as we'll go through and look at the mindset of this, what I'm trying to do is get to tell social is fundamentally part of what most of us do and could be doing for ourselves, for our companies, for our employers. So lots of stuff we could do. So that I'll come back to at the end. And if you've got any reasons that are different to that, you've got anything else that's stopping you from getting in, by all means let know. So I could do this session over a day really, so I'm going to go quite quickly and cover a lot of ground, so apologies for that. But as Dan said, look, if you've got questions as we go, by all means either Dan will follow the questions and he'll stop me and we'll go back over it, or we can do Q&A at the end. More than happy. I'm just going to do a bit of a scene set for 2020 and social. It's obviously there's lots going on. The world isn't quite what we thought it was going to be when we started this year, and we're already seeing some shifts that might play into our relative spaces. I'm going to look at people power because it's fundamentally crucial to what we're going to talk about. Governance. I'm not a governance guy. It's the least favorite thing I do, but we've got to get that right. and consider it up front. And I'm going to talk about LinkedIn being the platform that's the best for me and my organization, but hopefully that will be the same for you and your organizations, and then Q&A at the end. So a little bit about me. I don't do this as a reason to talk about me. I want you all to think, as you're thinking about this from your perspective, what your version of this slide is. My background into social is PR and media. Media relations. I was in the press office and media roles and that sort of things for quite some time before that. I did some parliamentary and government affairs work. So that's where I'm coming at it from. I'm not a marketeer. I'm not a creative minded. Well, I sort of am. I've taught myself creative, as you'll probably see through some of this. But I'm not a marketer. I'm not an advertiser. So that's where I'm coming from. So from a rep risk perspective, promotion perspective, that's what I'm hoping to that's what I do. But outside of work, I've got other stuff, and you've all got other stuff. And what you bring to your social is entirely can be on this slide if you choose to. So I'm a rugby referee. I do all my rugby stuff. I create loads of content for my rugby side hustle from the refereeing perspective. I do a podcast. I've also got a blog, my own stuff. So the Keith.social stuff is just my views on socially stuff. And then I've got the ruler of the good ship Lewis as well there, and the micros. So all those things you can bring into your social game if you choose to. So that's what I think about. Think of your version of this slide as you go through. So where are we? Let's just have a bit of a scene set. Millions and millions of people in the UK, all of them in some way, shape or form say they're internet users, although there was some Ofcom research last year which showed that there's still a bit of a population who aren't internet users full stop, never mind social users. So particularly those of you who are working in the local authority space and you are dealing with what we might call service users, some of those service users won't be on the internet, never mind be on social. So you just need to think about who your audience is and whether this is an appropriate conversation for you to get to them in different ways. But 96%, they reckon, like that Ofcom thing said, I think there was 13% weren't internet. So take whichever figures you like, but clearly a huge chunk of people using social. What are they doing? And this is the We Are Social Hootsuite report that comes out every year. If you're in the social space, do have a look at this every January. It's a mine of great data and intel, both from a UK perspective, but those of you that are with global markets, it's well worth a dive into. So from a UK perspective, YouTube, Facebook, all the big ones are on there. The ones in the non-yellow, I say blue, but people sometimes have colorblind blue. The other goods, other chat messaging platforms, which are great, but also a complete pain in the backside for us as brand owners, because we can't get in there. We don't know what's there. We don't know what's being said. They're really hard to monitor unless you're in there as a user. So it's a challenge for us, and those groups weren't there a couple of years ago. So this is one of the shifts we're starting to see. So definitely an opportunity to create those groups, and you control them within your world, and then you've got control of what's being said, or at least you can see what's being said. But as a brand, it's something to be aware of. And of course, we're seeing new platforms on there. TikTok wasn't on this chart last year, and it's at 8%, and that was at January, so it's probably even bigger that, despite their local difficulties in the US, which I think seem to have resolved themselves. I think this is a content point, and I'll definitely come back to content as we go. What are people doing? They're watching. What are people doing? What are you doing when you're on social? You're using it to find things. You're looking at video content, whether it's YouTube type video content or a replay of this type content, or you're looking for help with stuff, or you're looking to follow people, whether it's vlogs, whether it's reels, whether it's lives, whatever it might look like. Video content's crucial. Audio is also on the rise as well, and I don't know whether I validate that when I talk about it, but obviously I'm do a podcast from a rugby perspective, so I'm conscious of that audio. I think we're certainly now starting to see more and more podcasts out there. Again, an opportunity to get our people and you on there as experts, but also a chance to own some space. If you're looking at owning some space out there in your sphere, then maybe a podcast is something to start doing. It's not hard. It really isn't hard to do. The text there, and it's just something to bear in mind as we go. I'm gonna have to do that again because that didn't work.
Okay then.
Excuse me. Oh, stick with us.
Yep.
Has anyone ever died on a webinar before? I hope this isn't the first. This is a chart that's actually been updated from July this year, showing the shift in e-commerce this year, and clearly we're all seeing that. Banking and insurance up 15% of people looking online to buy stuff. Now that's going to clearly impact all of us. We're all at home in our spare rooms, in our second bedrooms, bits of the garage, wherever it is we're finding to work, and that's driving things into an online space. So we're already seeing shift in buying behavior around the world, and clearly that's not going to go away anytime soon. It's just something to be aware of. And you guys are in social, so you're seeing the charts like this more than most. This is actually our LinkedIn company page traffic over the last month. How on earth we are supposed to deal with this, I can't get my head around it. And that's organic stuff. The blue line's the organic. We're doing some paid for on a global basis. I mean, that makes it really hard for us to do our jobs, because that's just happening behind the scenes. And every time someone makes a shift in an algorithm, we get those big dips. And we can't do anything about it as much as we try. So it is part of the reason for doing what I'm doing and trying to activate more people, because that's from a branded channel. So if that's happening to all our brands and our business pages, how do we get around that? So let's shift the discussion to us. So that number is a Zurich number, but you all have a number like that, and that's how many people work for your organization. And you are one of those people as individuals. And this is what it's like in corporate space. You are one brick in a giant brick wall. You like the analogy. And some of you will have looked at that and you'll have picked a black one or a brown one or a white one or the bits in between. And we're all in there somewhere trying to be a brighter brick in our respective corporate walls. And this is just something I've got into my head over the last, this is something I use personally. Look at any of my own social content, there's bricks there, because that's what I'm trying to get people to think about. If you wanted a slightly better analogy, and I was on a webinar last week and I've nicked their slide. There we go, there's a slightly better one. How are you standing out in your space, and how do we start to do that? And how do we start to build you out? So pick whichever of those pictures you want to mentally keep hold of for a while, because that's what we're going to try and do. And that's what I'm trying to do internally, to get our people to be a brighter brick or a coloured giraffe in our safari of animals. You get where I'm coming from.
That makes a lot of sense now, Keith, because I have checked out your personal blog before, and you have that brick effect in the background. So now I get it.
Yeah, every now and again I do a post about what the brick's about, just to try and set the scene. It kind of, I mean, everyone's got this personal brand thing, isn't it? I mean, there are so many people out there doing it. How do you stand out? And that's part of the point I'm trying to make, is how do you do it? And if people are coming to my profiles and seeing bricks and it's just a thing that they associate with me, then that's part of my personal brand. Some people, if you remember people like Justin Urquhart Stewart when he was doing on TV, you might not know his name, but if I said red braces and bow tie in the business world, you probably jump to the picture, because that's the personal brand. But you kind of get the point there. And this is where we get into the mindset thing that I touched on earlier. When we talk about social media influencers, these are the sorts of people that people jump to. It's the Safi Barkers who was on Strictly last year. It's Joe Wicks, who started on his massive, now a multi-millionaire, multi-platform media profile guy, started on Instagram by building up a profile there. And those are the 6 guys in the kids, I must feel old. But those are the guys in the TikTok house who are creating TikTok content day after day under one roof. 15 million followers or connections on TikTok between them at the start of that, and that'll be enormous now. Don't think what that number is. But what we're trying to do is to shift this to you, because you are all influencers in your space. All the people that are in your organization are influencers in their space and on their platforms, and people just aren't seeing it. If we try and get to the mindset in, then hopefully that will start to land with them. But why is it important? Look, you'll all know this. This is the Edelman Trust Barometer chart. It's probably been in every slide deck going in this sort of space. Who is more credible when delivering or receiving messages from? And you are all, and everyone in your organization fits on the left-hand side of this chart. You are all a person like yourself, being alive. That's the easiest one to think about. And I'm guessing you have employment, and apologies if you don't, but you are a regular employee of your organization. Tricky times at the moment. but you're at least 2 of those. And then you picture yourself either as a company technical expert or an academic expert. And even if you're just one of those 4, you're probably 2, if not 3. Some of you might be all 4. Just look how more credible and trusted you are than all the people that we put our energies for as a brand. All the CEOs actually crept to the left of that chart, but that was way down the right-hand side last year and the years before that. Boards of directors, NGOs, journalists, government officials, all down the right-hand side. And given that we've got local authority audience here today, the people you're putting all your efforts into, no one trusts them. Even if they're brilliant and they're doing a fantastic job within your organization, the public trust you more than they trust them. That's just a fact, and Edelman's been telling us that for years. So look, we've got to do it. So that's part of the why, to explain why we're doing it. We've clearly got to look at governance and getting it right and say, look, I'm in a regulated company. We've got to get our social media policies done and dusted up front so that people buy into it. Because if you're going to give them a 12-page policy document, which is what ours looked like 3 years ago, then they're going to throw it out the window. They're not going to read it, and they're certainly not going to do it. So we scrapped our social media policy doc, and we've rewritten it, which is now, well, that's it. It's 3 pages. It's in a 6-page document, which includes a back cover. We've got 2 other pages that that talk about Workplace, which is our internal social platform, and we've got a page on LinkedIn Elevate, which I'll show you in a minute. But fundamentally, our Zurich social media policy globally is on 2 pages, and basically it says, don't be an idiot and don't break the law. That's generally what all our social media policies should say. We'll couch them in different ways, and I'm more than happy to share this with you, Dan, for you to share to people who are watching. You can see this if you want to steal it. I'm sure we probably stole it from someone somewhere along the line.
No, it's always good to share those kind of things, and I think it's fantastic to get it down from, you said it was 12 originally, down to 2. Like, just makes it massively more accessible, and people will actually read it at that point, which is what you want.
Yeah, and we then supplement that with a training module as a sort of 20-minute how-to in cartoon style, and then you get a certificate at the end of it, so we can prove that people have done it. We've got 2 different versions. We've got a social media for everyone, and we've got a social media for what we call spokespeople. That's either leaders or people who operate behind a brand channel. So we've got 2 different courses that people can do on our learning system. It's really important. This is from our Zurich Code of Conduct, and this is actually we've just relaunched it today globally. So this is the first time this has probably ever been seen in real life. But this is our social media, the page on our global Code of Conduct document, which is 20-odd pages of how we operate as individuals as a global company. This is communicating with external parties, but it's really, really clear that employees can engage, and it can be about work. Yes, it's caveated with be careful, please. We're a regulated company, we're on the stock exchange, so what we say out loud as experts can shift stock prices, which is not something any of us really want to do, and stay out of jail. So we don't. So yes, there's caveats, but it's really, really clear that we want people to do it and that they can. So this is where we have to shift from a brand, shifting back internally slightly. We've all got our own branded channels, but we've all clearly got our own personal channels that we as a brand are trying to get you to do to advocate for and to be an advocate for your employer. This is just a task for you to do. Whenever we're doing this, we kind of give people permission to operate, and then we're giving them some tips to do. So you can do this as well. I left this in there. People might be familiar. This is a LinkedIn free tool. It's their social selling index. I'm sure it's cropped up before, but it lets you plug into you plug it into your LinkedIn profile, and it tells you from LinkedIn's perspective how well you're doing on LinkedIn. So it's a great baseline, and if you go to that short URL there, that'll bounce you into it, or just search for it. And what it does is that it gives you your benchmark of how you're doing out of 100 in the big circle, and it's perfectly gameable. And it's looking at 4 different things: establishing your brand, finding the right people, engaging with insights, and then building relationships. And when I first did it, I was at 55, realized that red bar was the one that wasn't as good as the others. So I just spent a couple of weeks playing with it. And within 3 weeks, I'd already shifted up to mid 60s. And now I'm hovering 70. It varies between 75 and 80. But that's my job, isn't it? You kind of expect that to do that. So plug that in, have a look and see what you're doing now, and have that as your benchmark and you can be competitive about it. If you want to be competitive, I'm sure Dan's got some stash we can give to anyone who can come up with the highest SSI score.
We've always got some swag to give away.
We can come up with something. So stick it in the chat if you want to be brave and plug it in and see what your score is. But it's a really good benchmark. So do it now, then start to be more social and start to build, and then your numbers go up, and you start to just get a bit of self-gratification, if you like. It doesn't mean anything to anybody. If you want to be competitive with it amongst your organization, or if you're doing this with the leadership team, I always say, well, let's do it now. Give it 3 weeks, and then I'll come back and mark you. I keep a list on my notice board, which I'm not going to show you, of our exec and how they do it, so I can show them that how they're developing in their own type platforms. But it's a good little tool for you to go and have a look. So that link should bounce you through. And then we come to the content issue, because this is where it becomes a challenge. So it was one of the questions: what's stopping you? I don't know what to do and what to say. So there's 2 different ways that we do it. One is that we're using a platform called LinkedIn Elevate, and I'm going to show you this. Don't worry about this, because LinkedIn are actually about to kill it by the end of the year, and I'll show you in a second what they're doing with it, because they're actually bringing it away from a paid platform that people like Zurich have used for a year or 18 months into a free product that you're all going to be able to see in due course, and I'll show you that in a minute. But what this does, the principle is the same no matter what platform you might use, and there are 5 or 6 different big platforms out there that you can buy into that do this. We create content, we create content buckets, and what you're seeing here would only be visible to Zurich employees. So you're in control of what you put in these buckets. So we do them by either country or segment. In the country buckets, we can then put whatever content we like into those buckets for people to share. So you'll see there, some of it's generic, so how to run a great virtual meeting, nothing to do with Zurich, nothing to do with insurance, but something anyone within our firm could post about and is relevant to any audience, particularly in the current climate. And then we've got company-specific stuff, like this is obviously at the start of earlier in the year about our coronavirus impact and locations and things like that. And what they do is if an employee sees something like that, they can click on it. We've written some words for them, and they can just send it out to their networks. They attach their Facebook, their LinkedIn or Twitter. Facebook is added behind the scenes as well if people want to do that. But it's a really great way of a brand giving stuff to employees that's safe, it's compliant. It also ticks the time box as a user, because with this version you can schedule stuff. So in one sitting, an employee could go in and schedule 4 or 5 pieces of content over the next week to go out if they wish to. So it kills that time, effort, the consistency piece. But it's there for people to do. So if you are really looking to do this, you can invest in these platforms which really do work, and I'll show you the proof of that in a second. Right now, so it really does. So this is real data from Zurich. This is just from the UK bucket. I didn't show you the global stuff because that just makes it much bigger number. So this is just the UK bucket that I showed you at the start, which is the one I'm in control of from a content perspective. We've put 317 pieces of content into it. It's had 4,500-ish shares. Reach, I don't believe that number for 1 second, but I'll tell you it's a massively brilliant number. 6 million people have seen our content through it. I don't believe it, but reach in our world is obviously one of those mythical things. It just means it's been presented on somebody's screen. Doesn't mean they've seen it, doesn't mean they've actually looked at it. But that's the crucial number.
It's a different matter.
Doesn't matter. That's what reach is. It's just a mythical number that's landed somewhere. It doesn't mean anyone's seen it. But the next number is crucial for me. That's the one I would look at all the time. So of those 317 broadcasts, which had 4,500 shares, 4,300 shares, 26,000 engagements. That's real. That's real people clicking and doing something more than just it landing on their screen and in their feed. That's the real thing that's really happened. And of course, this is mainly on Instagram on LinkedIn for us as a professional organization. So it's mainly there. You can see that some of the numbers underneath that, what's gone on. So clicks, reactions, comments, it's driving the right behavior. And of course, from the algorithm perspective, when somebody does that, it's then presented elsewhere. So the knock-on value of that's really powerful. We can gamify it. So we've got our top sharers there. And you can also see the platform, and this is the same for all the platforms really, whether you use Elevate or Dynamic Signal or Post Beyond or whatever it is you might use. And we can see what content's really working. So the top piece of content for us isn't a Zurich piece, which I actually think is really good, because what I don't want is everyone going on and sharing just Zurich stuff, because that's dull from their perspective. And it's kind of, frankly, isn't it? I mean, if everyone's just sharing Zurich stuff, we want to give them a bit of variety in their feeds. But most of the other stuff that's being shared there is about Zurich, which is part of what we're trying to do. We're trying to raise our profile and be seen more. So numbers, pay gap, our gender pay gaps, UK results, some of our early coronavirus stuff where we gave we ended up with, I think, 500,000 face masks by accident in a store, which of course until February was completely useless, but then it became quite important. So we gave them away. We gave them to hospitals, local authorities, some of our partners at the time where they needed it. We had it, so we gave it away. So of course we did some PR about it because we're a company. And there's even some weird stuff like Dickens covered for hard times there. We discovered in an archive that we did that we had Charles Dickens was a policyholder of ours, and we've got the original sheet. So I did some social posts on it, and it got some really good traction on it. So there's all sorts of sort of hard commercial stuff, some good PR, some good CSR stuff, but also some general content that's going out. And just to play that against some organic data, going back to the point we made right at the start about organic. This is a year old, this slide, but the point is still the same. So we pasted the same thing on our LinkedIn channel, and then we put it on Elevate for employees to share. So what did we see on LinkedIn proper? Of 40,000 people that could have been presented to, which is the UK bods in the global space, only 509 people were served it. And then 4, possibly if I'm generous, 6 people either liked it and clicked on it, of 40,000. So there's our organic problem home to roost. We put it on Elevate for our employees to share. 25 shares, 133 engagements, 37,000 reach, again, if you believe that figure. But we got from 4 clicks to 133 by giving the same piece of content to our employees to share. And of course, our employees are in the game. They've got customers who are connected to it. The message is being received by all their connections and audiences and things like that today. So it really does work for us. But I fully appreciate that I'm a big brand sitting here with a budget which is ever decreasing, and you guys are saying, but we can't afford stuff like that. So we need to get the content message out in a different way. If you don't have that, and this is where we need to look at ourselves and think about what is content and how do we do it. I've gone too far. I'll come back to that point in a minute. So hold that thought. So what I'm showing you here is what Elevate. So LinkedIn, as I said, is LinkedIn are canning the Elevate platform, because what they are doing is bringing in a new thing called the My Company tab. And this at the moment is only visible to firms with employees of more than 200 employees. So if you are working for a local authority or a company like ours, then you will probably see that now as an employee on your company profile page. Whether your company has figured it out yet, I don't know. So it might be something to prompt you to do. But within that My Company tab, you can only be seen, what's in there can only be seen by your employees. So you might have to do a verification that you are an employee of Zurich or whoever you work for to do that if they've switched that on yet. At the moment, it will show you, and this is live, this is yesterday's stuff, it's showing you how many people joined your firm, so you can reach out to them if you want to. You can say hello. You can sell promotions and anniversaries, that's default in there, and then trending coworker content. So who within Zurich has been putting content out there that's doing all right according to LinkedIn. So we've got some big stuff going on there. So that's what you would expect to see and what you will be seeing in your company if you're over 200. In due course, some of the tools that I showed you from Elevate will be coming into this My Company feature. So it's really important for us and I think they're also then going to bring down that 200 employee number much further down. So I think it will be coming to more people very quickly, and some of the tools that we've got to place content in here for employees to then see and then share, the principle will be the same. So that's coming if you haven't already got it. So it's certainly something to be aware of.
Brilliant.
But sorry, going back to my other point. So us as individuals, we don't have My Company tab yet. We haven't got any investment for a platform. So what do? We've got to look for other content that we've got. Here's just 10 ideas that we come up with. I'm sure that you can insert your own ideas of stuff that keeps you away from a regulatory space. For those of you in a regulated market, I don't talk about a product for a particular end game because we're not allowed to. From a Zurich perspective, from an insurance perspective, I'm not allowed to tell you need product X, Y, or Z, particularly on the life side. You obviously all need home and motor insurance, kids. But from a regulatory perspective, we've got to be really careful about what we're telling people to do and advising people, advised purchase. So we've got to be careful. So this list keeps people away from that. So there's loads of stuff there, whether it's more personal, bringing that, remember that my about you slide, you've got opportunities to talk about that. If you go to my LinkedIn stuff, every now and again, I talk about rugby because it's part of my content sphere and it's about me. And then you've got life at Zurich. So many of those, your organizations will have your own hashtags like that, that you're running to try and get the message about what it's like to work at your organization. So loads of stuff that you can talk there. But let's bring that back down to real stuff. So this is my diary from the first week of March, middle of March. After this week, it all went horribly wrong, you might remember, or this was the week it all started to go horribly wrong for us. So it was a good example of a real, like, this is really my diary that week. And what I did was to look through what is it, when I'm looking at my diary and thinking, what can I talk about this week? What are the things that are in there that you can use as a diary hook? And you've all got diaries, you've all got meetings, you've all got stuff that you do that brings it all out. So it was International Women's Day on the Sunday, so we had an event on the Monday. I take my boys to their acro stuff, so that's the kind of like work-life balance piece. So I work in the canteen while they're doing their thing. It's fine because I can do that. I've got a laptop, we're mobile, although we're not allowed to do that anymore, of course, but you get the gist. There'll be big piece political stuff. It was budget day that Wednesday. There will always be something in a budget statement or a financial statement from the government that we can all talk about, whether it's something that's gone well, something we didn't go well that's going to harm us or help us, something we called for but we didn't get, because lots of, if you in the run up to budgets, organizations are always calling for things that they know full well they're not going to get. Gives you 2 bites of the PR cherry to say you want it and then B, to be disappointed or delighted that it did or didn't happen. So it's kind of, we've all got that in our worlds we can do. I've got my referee stuff. It was Friday the 13th that week. Nothing, not professional, but it's the sort of thing that anybody's going to have a view on. Do you believe in Friday the 13th? Is it nonsense? Is it, there's a debate, anyone will have a view, whatever decide. So why don't you prompt a debate on that sort of thing? And then I've got more rugby stuff as well. So there's lots of ways you can look at your diary to create content if you're looking at it in the right way. I don't know what to post. Look at your diary. There's some great stuff in there that will give you a prompt, even if it's just one thing. Even if you just do one L&D, if it's this webinar, go and tell people that Dan's brilliant and that you've enjoyed this session. There's a great piece of content. Tag me in, tag Dan in. We're all going to say thanks very much. Therefore, your message is going to be seen by all my connections, all Dan's connections, all our branded connections. Therefore, more people are going to see you and see that. So it's a kind of really easy thing to do now. Using that. So that's just a kind of canter through lots of stuff. I said I was going to go quick. We're going to cover lots of stuff. I think I've fulfilled that promise. Hopefully some of the answers to your question at the start that you answered, if you answered it in your head, what's stopping you, we've covered off. There may be more. I'm more than happy to talk about that. And of course, I'm more than happy for you to hunt me down on the socials, connect either LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm still a Twitter user. I know some of you have left it or have left it in the past. I'm trying to up my Insta game as well. So I'm Keith Lewis Comms on all the channels. So come find me.
Brilliant. So with the calendar, Keith, what I find super fascinating is when you first told me about the idea of using your calendar as a way to come up with content, I was thinking it would just be purely work, your work calendar, meetings. I have a meeting with this team member in another department. In that meeting, I can talk to them about posting more on social. And it's actually not that, is it? It's about your calendar, work and personal, and then using that as a feed, almost like to come up with topic ideas and content that you can start sharing, so that it's not all just work posts, as you were saying. So I just thought it was really fascinating.
Someone pointed out to me, I'm not going to even claim credit for it, but it's such an obvious thing that people don't think about. So it struck me, it worked for me, and I like to share it because it just makes it real.
Yeah, and when you approach, I also thought it was really great how you got a list of sort of safe topics and content ideas. Obviously, working in a regulated industry, as some others will be, you definitely can't say some things around products and whatnot. So it's, I just really like the list. It's like you can have that on the wall, almost print it out, keep it up there every week, revisit. Is there one of these that I can add onto my list this week? And do you find there's some kind of ratio that you should try to aim for, or that you personally do with when you're coming up with content? Okay, we've got like a certain number of Zurich posts and a certain
Yeah.
number of other posts which are just, you know, about what's something that's happening in the world and it's not related to Zurich. Do you have
Okay,
an 80/20 rule or
yeah,
something
I've
like
got
that?
yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I've got two answers to that depending on what hat I'm wearing. So an Elevate perspective, so the content that we're giving to employees, I try and make it as best we can to be 4-to-1. So for every 4 pieces of Zurich content, there's at least something that any employee could share, no matter where they are, whatever rank they are, whatever part of the business they sit in, whatever their customer looks like, they'll be able to share, like the virtual meeting post. So if I switch hat to a Keith hat rather than a Zurich hat, I tend to I don't schedule it. I'm not a planner, as many people are in this space. I try not to over Zurich stuff, because most of my connections on LinkedIn, for example, aren't insurance, because I'm a social media and PR guy and rugby guy. So it's not relevant to my network. So it'll generally be probably the opposite. So 1-to-4. So for every 4, I might do about something socially, about something rugby, or wider business, or just something chat. Then I'll stick a Zurich one in as well. And it's peaks and troughs. So this week we've had more stuff going on, so I probably shared it, and I'm doing some projects and some initiatives that I'm personally involved in, so I'm sharing more of that. That is more Zurichy. But it's finding a balance, because you'll find just a quick cursory look at your engagement will show you what your audience like. So if you're sharing stuff and people aren't doing something on the engagement front, and it's not about like harvesting, it just won't work. And that's fine. Some posts, I was looking at some of mine yesterday, one had nearly 4,000 views on it and one had 70.
Yeah.
Just kind of don't worry about the 70, and make sure that more of them, as you start to build, you get an understanding for what works, and how to generate more engagement in those posts is crucial. We'll start to you'll naturally flow to it because it works, and that's what we're here for, isn't it?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. And then I'll if everyone on the line, if you do have a question, obviously it's still time to submit it. And before I check on that, so Keith, if you're trying to just get started with, you know, maybe traditionally social media, it's only been in the comms or marketing team, and you're trying to get other members of the team of the organization on board. Have you got any experiences like where to start if it's just that first step before going full blown like social media influencer program? Like, what's the first thing you could do just to get more people posting once a week or something like that?
Yes, another great question. Like you've got I think you've got two choices, and you can either do both or one. One is to crowdsource.
Yep.
And that's to kind of use the channels that you've got, whether you have a workplace or a Yammer or something, to kind of tell people that you want them to.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, if you think about my corporate wall at Zurich, lots of people have been here for a long time. I spent my first 7 years here telling people to shut up, because as a press office, that's what we used to do, because everything that was said out loud was filtered through a media team, and we're having to, what I call, reculture the organizations, that they understand that we want them to, and that they can. So it's kind of crowdsourcing that stuff by telling people that they can, and starting to see who's naturally going to do it. And you might know, if you've got an internal platform, there will be people that jump to your mind right now who think, oh, they'd be really good at that, because they're already doing it on Yammer or Workplace or whatever, or on the internet, whatever it might be. And they won't be your leaders. Yes, we've got to be nice to them, and we've got to play to their egos to some extent. And this is part two, is really, you need to hunt them out. So find out those people out there and cherry pick them. So work with a small group, whether it's 5 or 10 or 50 or whatever your scale of your organization that you've got time to do. Flatter them, say that, spot them, and look strategically at it as well. So from your organization perspective, what are the areas that you're trying to get into or be more visible at, or trying to do more in? And then find people who can help you achieve that. whether is literally doing more business, whether it's drumming up more support for by your service users, whether it's talent acquisition and getting people to do it. There'll be people out there who can help you to achieve that because they've got good stories to tell, and kind of work backwards from the end game as a good PR, and then you can track it. So if you are looking at take talent acquisition, getting people recruitment in as a thing. If your job is to get more BAME female candidates in your pipeline, then you need to work backwards from that point. So how do I do that? I need to get people who are already fulfill those criteria and get them to tell those stories. So who internally do I know has got a good story that fits that bill, and go to them and then work up from there. Because if they're seeing, there's literally no point me doing a talent acquisition campaign for BAME females, is there? I mean, look, Zurich, clearly the wrong person to tell that story.
Yeah.
So find the right people to tell a story and work on those individuals if that's your end game. And whatever your end game, will work backwards from that point and find them. And that's obviously puts more onus on you as individuals. And I think this is a skill set this group will benefit from, is use your network and be the person that knows where everyone is. Who are your internal influencers? Who are the people that you know will perform when you ask them to, or will do something like that? And it's great to have that bank of people in your pocket, and then you become the person that's known for it, and then you literally go and scout them. That was a very long answer to a very good question.
No, it's good. No, it's really interesting. And just another question from me, really. Like, do you then, have you done in previous, do you share the results back with those people? So if you're crowdsourcing the ideas, I guess there's nothing worse than being on the receiving end. Like someone's asking you for something, you have to take a few minutes out of your day to do it for them, and then you never hear anything about it. So it's always nice to see that, oh, okay, I know I spent half an hour on this thing. Oh, and it paid off, actually, you know. So would you recommend that, encourage that?
Yeah, you've got to do that, because you need them. You're just one person in your wall, if you like. You need the rest of the bricks with you. So everyone else needs to do it. It's a bit of self-promotion. There's always what we would call in the PR team as PRing the PR team, so that they know that the piece of coverage that we got over there was achieved by us doing our job and by placing that member of staff as a case study, or getting a customer working with the claims handler to get the right claim story for us to tell. So absolutely crucial that we replay that back in and show the value. I mean, it's all very well if those numbers that I showed you aren't doing anything. If they don't know about it, all they're seeing is your chief exec is just seeing your people talking more on LinkedIn. So what? So build it in at the start as to what you're tracking, so that you can then come back to prove that you've done the right job. You've done the thing that you set out to achieve. Are your talent acquisition numbers, is your supply up in the particular areas that you're targeting at? Yeah,
brilliant. So just going to quick check, see if there's any questions. Comment from Claire, not really a question, just love that, simple and to the point. I'm not sure if that's the whole presentation or a specific.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually that cropped up in a session last week, actually. I mean, is that because I've been on Twitter since the start, my brain still works in 140 characters, which is something people think about. Oh, they overthink their own content. Is that these platforms were created for short form, so start short, or at least don't go too far. People worry about having to go on for hours and pages and do blog posts and stuff. 140 characters is enough to get started.
Yeah, completely.
Short to the point.
Yeah, definitely. I like the link there. And then, what social media platforms do you recommend using? From Claudia.
Claudia, thank you for that. That's a great question. I actually have in my normal full deck, that's a slide I've got in, and I don't answer it because it will depend on why you're out there. Why are you doing what you're doing? Because the answer to that will drive you down a particular route and a particular channel. So for us, we're a big intermediated space. So when I say intermediated, for us, we've got life business who deal with independent financial advisors. So they intermediate the business for us. And on the general insurance side, it's mainly through brokers, commercial insurance brokers. So that's what I mean by intermediated. So therefore, we're dealing with those intermediaries, which therefore lends itself to that person-to-person, professional-to-professional space, which leads itself to LinkedIn. When I do this to some of our charity partners, they are trying to get more people to go to their into their, it used to be their face-to-face sessions or their coffee mornings or whatever it is. So how do we get people to coffee mornings? We need to go real people in a local area and are engaged in this particular space, which might take them down a Facebook route.
Yeah.
Instagram obviously has got different dynamics. TikTok and Reels, I don't know where that's TikTok and Snapchat. If your target audience is in that demographic who are using them, then that's where you need to go and be, if you can do it in a way that's authentic and real. So it's a really good question that I deliberately answered without answering it.
Yeah, it's the old it depends, I think.
Yeah, of course it does.
Those, yeah.
And
so
again, you'll find it works.
So out of interest, are you on, like, do you have a corporate TikTok account for Zurich Insurance or anything like that? Obviously, it's one of the newer networks.
Actually
People are still
so
trying to figure out if they should do it. Like, are they going to get any payback? Obviously, it takes time. If you're going to invest
it does take time, and yes, we do have a global TikTok channel. It's not something we're doing from a UK perspective. I mean, there's two reasons for it. One, we've got to appreciate that the next generation of people need to understand the risks that we're all facing globally, whether that's climate change risks, whether it's political risks and uncertainty, and then the new COVID world. And we need therefore we need to engage with that market to understand what their thinking is, what their dynamics look like, and therefore what products do we need to be building for in the next 5 to 10 years to do. But those people, those younger demographics, are also the people we need to come and work for us. We're an insurance company. We're not full of underwriters and actuaries. We've got a great chunk of that, but we've also got data analytics teams. We've got a social media manager who's quite good at what he does. So there's no vacancy there. We've got finance experts. We've got claims automation experts. We've got people that create robots for us to do our job, and that's not something that people would think to do in an insurance company. So we've got to try and tell people in the different dynamics what we're about, what the opportunities are, that we're aware of it, that we're listening to what they're doing, and we encourage the next generation into understanding the value of insurance, and therefore, and us as a company, as a recruitment, as a body with 50,000 people globally that will need to keep replacing time after time.
Interesting. So it's like a sort of a longer term channel, maybe.
Totally.
Yeah, longer term channel. Great.
And it might not work. It might not work. We've got to try these things out. Our social media experts, that we're always testing things out to see what works and what doesn't work. In 2008, we'd probably be sitting here at this time of year thinking, I've heard of this Twitter thing. Do you think we should do it? And some people said yes, and some people went, nah, I'll not catch on. And look where we are now. So I guess you've got to be in it to see what happens. And of course, the other thing is, if you're in it, then you get the handle. So you get your branded channel, and you own your domain. Whether you ever use it or not, you don't have to. But at least if you're on it quickly, no one else is out there using Zurich Insurance because we've got it.
Yeah,
so
which is
worth doing it just for the collateral.
Yeah, brilliant. So another question, please can I get a copy of the social media policy? Yeah, so I think if people are keen on that, I think after this, Keith, we can make that happen. So and that's it, that's all the questions. I mean, so super interesting session today. I can see how this is a full day session in other circumstances, but yeah, so thanks a lot for sharing those. I think there's some nice takeaways for everyone on the line.
Pleasure.
To take away some little bits to their own teams, and some good things certainly to get everyone thinking for a Wednesday morning. So yeah, thanks a lot for joining us, Keith. Thanks everyone for joining us live on the session today. Hope you have a great day, and obviously, as Keith mentioned before, give us a shout out. We will engage with you, and then obviously all of a sudden you're tapping into our networks as well. So putting it into action. So great. Hope to see you again soon. Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone.